Hey guys, tonight we're trading our cozy pillows and air conditioning for something a little rougher. You're going to wake up on a straw-stuffed mattress in a smoke-darkened cottage, somewhere in the frost-bitten belly of 18th century Sweden. There's frost on your eyelashes, your socks are stiff with ice, and your turnip-based breakfast might just file a complaint with your digestive tract. You're poor, perpetually tired, and weirdly obsessed with root vegetables. You probably won't survive this, but you'll look great doing it in a homespun tunic and a scowl. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The day begins before the sun does. You blink awake inside a room that's more chimney than chamber, coughing slightly as wood smoke creeps across the rafters. The fire went out hours ago, and the hearth is just a pile of charred disappointment. Your blanket wool barely clings to you like a damp dish rag. Outside, a rooster screams with the enthusiasm of someone being promoted to king of the world. You grope around in the dark for your socks. They are not where you left them, or perhaps they are, just frozen into the floorboards. When you finally pry them loose and pull them on, they crunch. Your boots aren't much better stiff leather, cracked seams, and a faint smell that might once have been mushroom stew. You trudge toward the hearth, muttering a small prayer that the oats didn't burn. Breakfast is a pot of gruel that's been bubbling since last night. It tastes like regret and wood ash. You chew, if you can call it that, while watching your breath cloud the air. Your younger brother elbows you, reaching for the last hunk of rye bread. You let him take it, not because you're generous, but because the crust could crack a tooth and you already chipped one last week. Outside, your mother is already feeding the pigs, muttering about a fox she spotted near the coop. Your father's voice carries in from the barn deep, gravelly, and laced with the eternal annoyance of someone who has never met a reliable cartwheel. You step out into the yard, where snow has thinned into slush, and the wind tries to slap your face off. You relieve yourself behind the shed. There's no privacy, but at least the chickens have the decency to look away. Then it's time for morning chores, which is really just code for move heavy things and get yelled at. Your task is to chop more firewood, which sounds simple until you remember the axe handle split last week. It's held together with twine, hope, and your uncle's questionable carpentry. Swing, miss, swing, crack, success, well, partial success. A log splits crooked, and a splinter lodges itself in your thumb. You suck on it, spit, and move on. The rhythm of chopping is familiar, almost meditative, but your muscles still protest like you've asked them to recite Latin. By mid-morning, the sun has climbed reluctantly over the tree line. Light seeps into the cottage, catching the smoke in golden shafts that make the soot look almost magical. Almost. Your sister sneezes twice and blames the goats. The goats, for their part, look smug. Historically speaking, Sweden in the 1700s was just clawing its way out of a brutal century filled with war, famine, and more war. Your region, probably somewhere near Upland or Westmanland, is dotted with small farms, all struggling to wring food from the rocky soil. The Enlightenment hasn't really hit your doorstep yet, unless you count the new almanac with marginally better weather predictions. And no, they're still not accurate. The family has precisely 3 spoons and a shared bar of soap. That soap is made from pig fat and lye and smells faintly of onions. Bathing is rare once a week if you're lucky, once a month if you're standard. Historians still argue whether most peasants even bothered washing their hair or just cut it short enough that lice got bored. As the gruel settles like cement in your stomach, your father calls for the turnip sacks. Time to head to the fields. You groan, not dramatically, but enough to make a statement. The fields mean cold wind, aching hands, and turnips that cling to the ground like they've made a pact with the underworld. But before you go, there's the morning prayer. Everyone kneels. The floor is cold, your knees crack, and the hymn your mother hums is a haunting little tune that once helped ward off demons or maybe just neighbors. You mumble the words, half believing, half distracted by a spider inching down the rafter. The quirky part of your morning? Your cousin Sven. He's been up since dawn, inventing something. You check behind the barn to find he's constructed what looks like a wooden umbrella strapped to a goat. It's for shade, he says. For the goat. You nod slowly and back away. Later, this will somehow end in fire. Back to the house. You stuff a pouch with salted fish, half a boiled egg, and a chunk of cheese hard enough to deflect arrows. Then you hoist the turnip sacks over your shoulder and begin the short, miserable walk to the lower fields. Mud sucks at your boots like it's trying to keep you from making poor life decisions. Too late. Your fingers already ache, your back twinges, and you're not even halfway through the day. But hey, at least the sky is clear. For now. The fields welcome you like an old enemy one who remembers everything you've ever done wrong. The soil is dark, wet, and streaked with frostbite. You step into the muck, and your boot sinks with a squelch that says, "You live here now." You try not to take it personally. After all, this is your daily battlefield. And your opponent? The noble, irritable, and frequently misshapen Swedish turnip. You find your usual spot near the stone fence, where yesterday's row of half-harvested roots waits accusingly. The hoe, its wooden handle smooth from decades of stubborn use, is heavier than it looks and somehow always cold. You swing, jab, twist, and pry. The turnips pop up reluctantly, trailing clods of earth, and the occasional worm that's larger than it has any right to be. Your sister works beside you, humming a song that might be cheerful if it weren't so off-key. Occasionally, she shouts helpful feedback like, "You missed one," or, "That's not a turnip, that's a rock." The sky is gray, but it's not snowing, so that counts as good weather. You try not to think about the fact that this same field will need to be fertilized in a week, and the family compost heap includes everything from eggshells to, well, things best left to the imagination. You pause to stretch your back and catch your breath. The wind slices in from the north, curling around your ears like it's searching for secrets. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks, or possibly a fox. The local wildlife tends to make everything your business, whether you like it or not. As you work, you overhear your father grumbling about crop rotation again. He read somewhere, maybe in the church bulletin or on a neighbor's barn wall, that rotating crops could improve yields. Historians still argue whether this practice was actually widespread among 18th century Swedish peasants or just something idealistic pamphlets pretended people did. Your father is skeptical, but after last year's cabbage debacle, he's willing to try anything that doesn't involve prayer or goat urine. The hours pass slowly. You lose track of how many turnips you've pulled, how many times you've wiped your nose with a sleeve, or how many times you've told yourself, this is character building. Your hands are raw, your stomach is already plotting its next rebellion, and your right shoulder has gone numb in a way that feels suspiciously permanent. But the field isn't without its rewards. A vole scurries past, comically round and puffed up like a bean with legs. You name him Gustav and give him a firm nod of respect. He ignores you completely. A flock of birds wheels overhead, heading south for the winter. You squint up at them and feel an odd twinge of envy. Lucky birds. No turnips for them. Eventually, your mother trudges over with a battered jug of ale and a thin cloth bundle of salted fish and oatcakes. Lunch. You sit on a stone and devour the food like someone who hasn't tasted joy in weeks. The ale is sour but warm, and the oatcake cracks slightly in your teeth like chewing a roof tile, but it's calories. And that's all that matters. Your uncle joins you, wiping his hands on his pants and offering you a toothless grin. He tells the story again about the time he found a perfectly round turnip and swore it was a sign from God. He named it Helga and kept it in a box for 3 months before it went soft and tried to kill him with mold. You laugh, but mostly out of politeness. Helga was terrifying. One of the quirkier facts you've picked up from your grandfather. Some local farmers whisper about moon planting sowing seeds only during certain lunar phases for the best crops. No one's ever proven it works, but enough people swear by it that no one dares mock it aloud. At least, not until they're a few ales deep at the winter feast. Back to work. The afternoon light has shifted, turning the landscape a dull silver. The shadows grow longer. You wedge your hoe under another root and push. It refuses. You push again. Still no movement. You drop to your knees and dig with both hands like an animal, muttering curses that are just shy of blasphemy. Finally, the turnip breaks free, an ugly thing, bulbous and streaked with red veins, like it's been lifting weights behind your back. You hold it up triumphantly, and your brother gives you a sarcastic round of applause from across the furrows. You consider throwing it at him, but turnips are precious and slightly deadly when airborne. The quiet of the field is occasionally broken by the rustle of linen skirts neighboring farmers trudging past, exchanging nods that mean everything from good luck to my pig escaped again. You spot old Marta from 2 cottages over, dragging a sled filled with bark and firewood. She's rumored to be a witch, mostly because she wears red socks and talks to her cows like they're people. Honestly, given the state of your social life, you get it. As the sun tips toward the horizon, your father calls it. Time to gather the sacks and trudge back. Your arms are jelly. Your knees click like old door hinges. You consider just lying down and becoming one with the mud. But there are chores yet, and maybe, just maybe, a heel of bread with butter if you move fast enough. You hoist the sack over your shoulder again. It's heavier than before, or maybe you're just more tired. Either way, the walk home feels longer. The house looms ahead, smoke curling from the chimney, and you wonder if Sven's goat invention caught fire yet. Spoiler, it did. The cottage smells faintly of smoke, sweat, and something that might once have been cabbage. You step inside, boots squelching softly, and drop the turnip sack with a thud that shakes a wooden spoon from its hook on the wall. It hits the floor like a tiny protest. You'd pick it up, but bending sounds emotionally taxing. Your mother eyes the sack with practiced disinterest. Not as many today, she mutters. You're too tired to respond. And besides, it's true. The field's been stingy lately. Or you've been slow. Or both. Probably both. She hands you a hunk of bread and a wedge of something claiming to be cheese. You nibble suspiciously. There's a blue-green bloom on one corner, and the texture could be best described as pretty sponge. You eat it anyway. Hunger trumps aesthetics. Then it's off to town. Not for fun. Obviously, this is the 1700s, and you're a Swedish turnip farmer, not a time traveler on holiday. But there are a few turnips to trade, some gossip to overhear, and a chance, slim though it is, that someone baked decent rye loaves this morning. You sling a basket over your arm and trudge back outside. The road to town is more of a glorified goat trail, rutted, narrow, and lined with low stone walls that serve mostly as tripping hazards. The walk is just under a mile, which feels longer when your boots are soaked and your knees are sending passive-aggressive threats. But the air is crisp, and someone nearby is burning juniper branches, leaving the scent of sweet smoke clinging to the wind. It helps a little. As you approach the village, the road widens and the noise picks up. Chickens scatter underfoot. A child shrieks at a goose. The goose, naturally, shrieks back. Market day isn't a formal affair. It's more a collection of wooden carts, crates, and loud opinions huddled around the church square. You set up your tiny patch of ground, arrange the turnips in a vaguely appealing pile, and immediately realize you forgot to bring extra twine. Again, you barter with a woman who's offering 2 onions and a slab of lard for 3 turnips. You haggle poorly and end up with 1 onion and the promise of goose eggs next week. Standard fare. Your cousin appears, this time with a soot-smeared face and no eyebrows. Apparently, the goat umbrella did catch fire. And no, he doesn't want to talk about it. As you wait for buyers, you tune into the undercurrent of village chatter. A local smith claims to have seen lights in the forest dancing blue ones. Will-o'-the-wisps, he says, or maybe forest spirits. Historians still argue whether these stories were genuine belief, wine-fueled nonsense, or just ways to explain why your neighbor went into the woods and came back wearing someone else's shoes. You overhear another man complaining about taxes. Always taxes. The Crown's latest levy on rye means that more farmers are trading grain illegally, slipping sacks across town borders in the dead of night. One baker swears he saw a nobleman buying contraband flour from a boy with no shoes. That's probably exaggerated, but you never know. Stranger things have happened, like the time old Stig tried to marry his cow. Not legally, just emotionally. By midday, you've traded away most of your turnips. You've acquired 1 small loaf of rye bread, a strip of dried fish, and a mysterious jar labeled fermented lingonberry that may or may not have been cursed. You're calling it a win. With your basket slung over one shoulder and a slightly smug limp, you wander toward the edge of the square. Your favorite spot isn't far. A low wall near the cooper's shed, warmed by the sun and ignored by the geese. You settle in, nibbling your bread and watching the town move. A fiddler plays something cheerful. A girl chases a pig through a puddle. Someone sneezes 4 times in a row and is immediately declared possessed, mostly as a joke. Mostly. And now, the highlight of your market trip. Cheese. Or more accurately, cheese drama. There's a long-standing rivalry between 2 local dairy families, the Björklunds, and the Henriksons. Both claim to produce the best cheese in the parish. Both are technically wrong. You sample from each stand. Björkland's wheel smells like feet dipped in lavender. Henrikson's crumble tastes vaguely like pickles and hope. You buy neither, but you nod politely and make sounds of approval so as not to spark another milk-fueled blood feud. Then you spot them outsiders. Not many, just a pair of well-dressed folks peering at a stack of pottery like it might attack. Nobility, maybe, or someone rich enough to fake it. Their boots are too clean, and their coats don't have a single patch. You eye them with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. They probably eat meals with forks. Both hands, wild. You take one last stroll through the stalls, and then start the walk home. Feet heavier now that the adrenaline has worn off. Along the path, you pass a wayside cross, its paint flaking in the sun. You pause, cross yourself, and whisper a quick prayer, half habit, half insurance. The sky is starting to dim, and the shadows are stretching longer, like lazy cats. The walk back is quieter. Less bustle, more birdsong. You swing the basket gently with each step, watching your breath mist in the air. There's a brief moment of peace, the kind that sneaks up on you when your limbs ache just enough to be real, and the air smells like wood smoke. And you know that even though the cottage is drafty and the food is weird, it's still home. You arrive to find your brother using the fire poker as a fencing sword. Your father is unimpressed. Your sister is peeling turnips like she's mad at them. You quietly put the basket down, sneak a bit of bread for yourself, and wonder how many more hours until you can finally lie down. Spoiler, not nearly enough. But you did come back with 2 onions, and in this house, that's cause for celebration. Or at least, slightly better soup. You don't even get to sit down before someone shouts your name, probably your father. Definitely not in a tone that suggests hugs and marshmallows are coming. It's Sunday afternoon, and that means church. Not the pleasant kind with soft pews and gospel choirs. No, this is a long, cold trudge to a building that smells like wet wool and judgment. But missing it? That's how you end up on everyone's gossip list, somewhere between that boy who kisses his chickens and Marta's red socks. So you scrape the dried mud off your boots mostly, and pull your second warmest tunic over your underclothes. Your sister insists on braiding her hair for the occasion, even though the wind will ruin it before you make it halfway there. Your little brother is hiding behind a barrel, pretending to be sick. He's not. He just doesn't want to hear the vicar's fire and brimstone sermon again. You envy his bravery. The walk to the village church is just shy of 2 miles. Long enough to regret every step, short enough that no one will believe you if you try to fake a twisted ankle. The air is still, but cold. The kind of cold that slides down your collar and whispers, "Should have stayed in bed." You huddle with your siblings, sharing body heat and bad jokes as you approach the steeple. It looms like a scolding finger pointed at heaven. Inside, the benches are hard, the air stale, and the vicar already deep into a thunderous paragraph about sin. Specifically, laziness. You glance around. Everyone pretends to be listening. Most are not. Your father closes his eyes, not to pray, but to nap with spiritual flair. Your mother hums quietly and knits. Your cousin is mouthing the words to a body-drinking song under his breath. The sermon stretches on, a slow river of threats and metaphors. Today's focus is on eternal flames, which feels ironic considering how cold your toes are. The idle hand is the devil's workshop, the vicar booms, And your sister mutters, "And my hands are basically angelic." You cough to hide your laugh. It doesn't work. Midway through, the topic shifts to goats. You're not sure why. Something about temptation and mischief. Historians still argue whether sermons of the era were mostly fire and brimstone, or if this level of animal-focused metaphor was just this guy's personal hobby. You wouldn't be surprised either way. Once the sermon ends, and it does, eventually, like a storm running out of thunder, you file out with the others. The graveyard beside the church is quiet. Snow dusts the crooked headstones. You glance at one carved with a skull and crossbones, meant to warn the living, but honestly, it just looks like a pirate invitation. Outside, the village comes to life again. Church is over, which means social hour begins. Gossip swirls faster than the wind. Who's courting who, whose cow wandered into the mill pond, and whether or not the miller is hiding flour under his floorboards. You pretend not to care, but your ears are open. Then the shouting starts. Not violent shouting, just spirited disagreement. Your family is standing near the cart when your uncle announces loudly that goats definitely do not have souls. Your sister disagrees. So does your mother. Your father doesn't want to weigh in, but ends up caught in the crossfire when someone brings up that time he tried to exorcise a rooster. You stand to the side, arms crossed, watching as the theological debate spirals into something involving reincarnation, Saint Bridget, and whether or not chickens can feel shame. A passing farmer chuckles and mutters, "It's always the goat question. Like this is a known phenomenon." You believe it. Eventually, the shouting subsides, mostly because your mother remembers there's bread dough rising and storms off. You follow, not because you're loyal, but because she walks fast and you'd rather not get left behind. The sun is low now, golden and slanting through the trees. Shadows stretch like ribbons across the road. You walk in silence for a while, kicking the occasional stone. Then your brother starts singing a song about a lovesick pig and a jealous horse. And somehow the group joins in. Off-key, of course, but heartfelt. Back at the cottage, the evening routine begins. The fire is coaxed back to life. The shutters are drawn, and the house glows in warm amber light. You strip off your outer tunic and hang it by the hearth, wincing at the smell. Smoke, sweat, and goat hair. Again, always goat hair. Dinner is simple. Boiled barley, some dried apples, and miraculously a bit of salted pork. The good kind, with just enough fat to trick your brain into joy. You eat quickly, guarding your bowl like a hawk. Sven tries to swap his smaller piece of meat with yours. You stab at his hand with a spoon. He retracts. Balance is restored. After dinner comes evening chores. Your sister spins flax at the wheel, foot tapping rhythmically. You're tasked with sweeping the floor, which mostly means redistributing dust. Someone spilled something sticky by the door. You don't ask what it was. Then comes one of the stranger family traditions, storytelling hour. Your grandfather, who may or may not have been a smuggler in his youth, begins to spin a tale about a haunted lake where the fish speak Latin. You're fairly certain it's fake, but his delivery is impeccable, and you listen with wide eyes, not because you believe it, but because believing is more fun than not. The final act of the evening is candle prayer. A single stub of beeswax is lit, and each family member takes a moment to murmur hopes or thanks. You whisper yours silently. Something about fewer splinters and better cheese. Maybe even shoes that don't leak. As the candle flickers, You feel the heaviness settle into your limbs. The good kind of tired. Honest, hard-earned exhaustion. The fire crackles low, and the shadows climb the walls again. You think of the goat debate, the church sermon, the sour cheese feud. And for some reason, it all feels okay. You're home. It's weird, but it's yours. The light in the cottage is dim now, soft and amber as it filters through the warped glass of the window panes. Your eyes sting, not from emotion, but from wood smoke and sheer fatigue. It's evening, the part of the day that promises rest but rarely delivers it. You reach for your mending pile, a shirt with one sleeve holding on by 2 heroic stitches, a pair of socks that are technically more whole than wool, and your personal nemesis, the family's woolen leggings, which seem to unravel purely out of spite. You thread your bone needle carefully, squinting in the candlelight, and begin. The rhythm of in and out, tug and tighten is oddly calming. Or it would be, if not for the constant pricking of your own fingers. You've stabbed yourself 3 times before finishing half a seam. You quietly curse whoever invented seams. Possibly the same sadist who made wool itchy. Your sister sits nearby, untangling a ball of yarn while trying not to fall asleep. Across from you, your mother is darning a blanket and humming an old lullaby. It's about a girl who fell into a lake and married a merman. You're not entirely sure it ends happily. Your cousin Sven Eyebrows, still half-singed, wanders in with a bottle of home-brewed ale and a grin that says nothing good happened today, but at least I survived it. He pours a cup for himself and offers you some. You accept, partly for the warmth and partly because it's not water, which tastes suspiciously like pond some days. The ale is sour, a little fizzy, and slightly cloudy. It tastes of fermented apples and ambition. Not great, but it does the job. You sip slowly, the warmth creeping into your belly, dulling the edge of your aches. There's laughter from the hearth. Your brother has apparently turned one of your socks into a hand puppet and is now giving it an elaborate backstory. The sock is named Olaf, he claims, and it used to be a nobleman before being cursed by a jealous cobbler. You roll your eyes, but smile anyway. A knock on the door breaks the moment. It's a neighbor bringing a borrowed pot back. The pot is mysteriously lighter than when it left. This is the 3rd time this month, and your mother just sighs. No one says anything outright. Swedish passive aggression is practically its own language, but the look she gives the pot would make a lesser man burst into flames. You resume mending. The fire pops, sending a tiny ember into the air, which Sven tries to catch for reasons best left unexplored. The ember lands in the corner with a soft hiss, and thankfully doesn't ignite the spinning wheel. Again, the candles burn low. Your father sharpens a knife by the door, not because anything needs cutting, but because he says it helps him think. About what? No one's sure. Taxes, probably. Or maybe how to finally win the cheese fair. You don't ask. There's a moment of silence, a rare thing in the cottage. Just the soft click of needles, the flicker of firelight, the faint creak of old wood settling around you. You breathe in. Ash and wool. A hint of dried juniper from earlier. It's almost peaceful. Then your brother, in a moment of brilliance, tries to juggle 2 potatoes and an onion. He gets through 1 full rotation before launching the onion into your ale cup. The cup tips, the ale spills, and the floor instantly becomes sticky and tragic. You look at him. He shrugs. You sigh. It's not long before someone suggests music. No one in the house owns a proper instrument, unless you count the reed flute made from a goose feather, which honestly sounds more like a startled squirrel than anything musical. But that doesn't stop the singing. The song starts soft, a worker's tune about gathering flax and dodging tax collectors. Everyone joins in, even Sven, though he's a half step behind and singing in what may or may not be Latin. The lyrics wind around the room like thread, spinning, plowing, losing boots in mud, swearing at turnips. It's oddly beautiful. You close your eyes for a moment and let the sound carry you. Then someone brings out the knitting needles. Your aunt, who lives in the loft and only descends after dusk like a slightly judgmental bat, sits down beside you. She's a swift and terrifying knitter. Her fingers blur, her eyes narrow, and you swear you hear the faint hum of impending doom. She eyes your mending job and lets out a soft, unimpressed task. Then she reknits your seam in 30 seconds, flat, while holding a conversation about the neighbor's suspiciously plump chickens. You thank her, unsure whether to feel grateful or quietly humiliated. She nods. The aunt has spoken. The night deepens. Your father extinguishes one candle to save wax. Your mother begins folding laundry, a task which takes 3 times longer because she keeps stopping to refold your brother's shirts the right way. The fire dims to a sleepy orange, and someone throws in another log. Sparks leap up like little fire fairies doing a tired jig. Quirky fact of the night? Some villagers believe that knitting at night invites mischief spirits to tangle your yarn, so technically, you've just invited supernatural sabotage. Your aunt scoffs at that. If a spirit wants to tangle my yarn, she says, it's welcome to try. You're not sure whether to be impressed or terrified. By now, the ale has settled, the needles have quieted, and the cottage has gone soft and quiet. You lean back against the wall, the repaired sock warm in your lap. Your eyes droop. The voices around you blend into murmurs, the air thick with flickering light and the faint smell of melted tallow. Outside, a gust of wind howls across the chimney. The shutters rattle. You hear a distant owl, hooting like it's the only thing awake for miles. You're grateful the roof held tonight, mostly. You start to drift. You're not in bed yet, but your mind is already halfway there. Tomorrow there will be more fields, more cheese gossip, and probably more fires caused by goats. But right now, there's warmth, there's wool, and there's a family that somehow manages to function despite everything. It's not a perfect life, but it's yours, and it's strangely, sleepily beautiful. The embers in the hearth glow like tired eyes, half-lidded and pulsing faintly as the last log collapses in on itself. The cottage has grown quiet, truly quiet now, the kind that wraps around you like a thick wool blanket, frayed but warm. Everyone's retreating to their corners. Your sister yawns so wide it creaks her jaw. Sven mumbles something about turnip-based propulsion and disappears into the loft, clutching a roll of parchment and a suspiciously shaped spoon. You take your time getting ready for bed, mostly because there's not much to do, but also because your bed is not exactly inviting. It's a pallet of straw stuffed into a wooden frame that leans just slightly to the left. The straw, despite being fresh, crackles ominously and may or may not house 3 beetles, 1 spider, and something with a tail. You fluff it half-heartedly. It flattens immediately. Your sleeping shirt is cold. So is the blanket. So is everything. You consider sleeping in your clothes, but last time you did that, your mother scolded you for stinking up the bed linens. You change quickly, hopping from foot to foot as the draft sneaks in under the door. Somewhere beneath the floorboards, a mouse squeaks. You nod politely in its direction. You've both had long days. Sliding into bed is like entering a sack of frozen twigs. You curl up, arms wrapped tight around your ribs, and wait for your own body heat to slowly carve out a livable space. It takes a while. The pillow smells faintly of old milk, but you're too tired to care. Just as you're about to drift off, something rustles, then scurries, then pauses. You lift your head slightly and spot a rat-average size, mildly judgmental expression sitting on the corner of the hearth, watching you. You blink. It blinks back. After a moment, it scratches its ear and shuffles off towards Sven's blanket. You shrug. Fair game. Your father's snoring begins like thunder in the distance. A low rumble, then a rise, then a full gale force assault. You've learned to live with it. It's part of the house now, like the creaky floorboards, or that one bean that smells weird when it rains. A final candle burns low on the windowsill. It flickers in rhythm with the wind outside, dancing gently as if trying to hold off the dark just a little longer. The glass panes rattle softly, kissed by the breath of the northern air. You pull your blanket tighter, chin tucked to chest, and sigh. Then the final ritual, the psalm. Your mother begins it, her voice soft and even, more spoken than sung. The melody is plain old, familiar Swedish through and through. A lullaby disguised as prayer. The family joins in slowly, voices layering like snowflakes. You don't really believe in every word, but that's not the point. The psalm isn't about doctrine, it's about rhythm, breath, warmth, and old hope whispered into the cold. As the last note fades, you close your eyes. Your body is heavy, aching but real, worn by labor and laughter and several brushes with secondhand cheese. You feel the straw shift beneath you. You feel the night close in. You feel tired, deeply, completely. And finally, the day releases you. And now, everything is still. The fire has died. The last light is gone, tucked gently into the folds of the dark. Outside, the wind moves through the trees with a hush like distant breath, curling around chimney tops and the edges of frost-laced windows. Even the owl has gone quiet. You lie there, wrapped in homespun cloth and sleep-heavy limbs, and you let the silence bloom. It's the kind of silence that only follows a day filled with toil earned, not given. Your body remembers every ache, every clump of earth, every whispered joke beside a muddy road. But now, all of it fades. The straw beneath you is rough, but it cradles. The wool is scratchy, but it holds. The snoring in the loft becomes white noise familiar, constant, a lullaby of its own. You're warm now, finally, in that slow burning way only exhaustion can bring. Breathe in. There's the faint scent of wood ash, beeswax, maybe even bread left on the hearth. Breathe out. Let it all go, the turnips, the chores, the goats with their endless schemes. Let your fingers uncoil. Let your shoulders loosen. Nothing else is required of you. Not now. Not until morning. Tomorrow will come, as it always does, with its frozen boots and lumpy gruel and shouted debates about the spiritual worth of livestock. But tonight, you've done enough. You're part of the land, the farm, the story, a quiet thread in a much older pattern. So sleep, turnip farmer. Let the dark carry you gently, like a song hummed low and slow beneath the stars. Good night.